which I don't even.
Hey, sir, today is your birthday.
Yes, today is my birthday, oh, Charlie. Amazing. I am having database classes on my birthday. Can you imagine? Anyway, today, as I said,
Happy birthday, sir.
oh, thank you, God. Today
If
we
we
are.
had known in advance, we would have given you, we would have brought a gift to class.
You do know that I brought a gift to class and then all the gift on the baby online and I said it. Okay, no problem. We are going to discuss databases. So, and then we are going to see how we can join our HTML application to our database. How do we do that? Now, the database itself is a container, okay? So I'm sure you have done your lessons and all of that thing already, but a database is defined as a structured collection of data that can be easily accessed and managed
I'm
and
sorry, can you hold?
updated. So if I have information that can be easily accessed and managed and updated, then I have a database. Are we okay? So that's what makes something.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Now,
God. Thank you.
now a database is, we can go further from this to say that a database is managed by a database management system. So the database is where the data is kept. For me to manage the data that is kept, I need or I require a database management system. One second, I'm just trying to bring up a picture of a database and a database management system. Mhm. Okay, perfect. This image would help us explain what a database management system is. So I'm going to save it and I'm going to open it up. So it's over here. So let me open it up. So I have this image over here. Are we okay? Now, this image presents us with a database management system. Now, over here, where the information is stored physically, is what we call the database. The database can be relational. The database can be hierarchical. The database can be flat. The database can be an object database. It doesn't matter. Please give me 1 second, okay? Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So, what I was saying was that the database is where the information is kept. Note that whenever we say database, we always think that all databases are structured the same. They are not. All of them have a format in which they use to store the information. By the end of the day, there will be a database management system that will be in charge of going to put the data there, going to record the data there, going to update the data that is there, and then making queries and picking up information from the database that is there. So there is database management system to do that. To be honest with you, applications talk to the database management system and not the database. Other databases will also try and talk to your database management system. And sometimes we can have users where we have APIs and so on and so forth talking to your applicational database. So this is the structure of the database. In our lesson, we are going to use the MySQL database. The MySQL database allows us to store information inside our database, inside our system, sorry, and it is a relational database, which means that all the entities we have in our database must have relationships among them. There must be relationships between the data we have and the information that is kept on the data that we have. And the information of the data that we have. So there goes the database, the MySQL database, so on and so forth. Now, in order to make life simple for us, we are going to be using ZAP, whereby we are going to be using the Apache as the server that would host our server-side applications. Of course, the database is a server-side application. Hence, we need a server to host the information on it. We also need the MySQL. And then we are going to use a PHP, and then we need Perl too. So over here, the X stands for all. Hence, we have all Apache, MySQL, PHP, and then Perl. That gives you the XAMPP. Hence, if I install XAMPP, if I go on my browser and say download XAMPP, and I install XAMPP, I am getting Apache, that will be my server, MySQL, that will be my database, PHP, that would be the server-side programming language I would use to process information. And then I have Perl, which is a PHP framework that is used for PHP programming. Now, in here, if I go and type the XAMPP control panel, I am presented with this interface. Now, this interface over here allows me to control the various items I mentioned. Apache is the server that will host all my server-side programming languages and applications. The MySQL is the database that would work in the server. So if I don't have my server on, you see, I click start for it to come on. How can I put my database on? Because the database would be hosted in the server. FileZilla is a tool that is used to do file transfers over a particular internet protocol or over internet protocols, FTP or SMTP or whatever you want to use to transfer information from one point to the other. We would use FileZilla. So, for example, if I want to do remote and I'm using my computer as a server and my computer is online and I have a specialized IP for my computer, I can do remote into my computer from wherever location I am so that a particular individual can use my server. And then I can use it to push data in and so on and so forth. Mercury is a localized mail server. So if I want to create my own email server, then I would use Mercury. And then Tomcat is a server for Java. So if I have Java, not JavaScript, but Java as my programming backend language, then I would use Tomcat to manage the server side of that application. But in this case here, all I need is my Apache and my MySQL. That brings the question, how will I open up my MySQL? My MySQL is the database. Hence, I need the database management system that manages the MySQL. Because per our diagram, we saw it. We saw that there is a database management system, and its job is to manage the database. The database is where we collect, store information, and then do all of those things there. So there is a database management system that controls that. And in the XAMPP environment, the control that does that is localhost/php myadmin. So if I type localhost/php myadmin, then I am hitting the address of the database management system of my server. So this is the database management system to my database. In here, if I want to create a new database, I can click new. And in here, I'll just type in database. Over here, what do I even call it? Let me call it DB_registration. And then I'll click on create. So now I have created a database called DB_create. Of course, this is when I'm using the interface. So I'm feeling good. The interface is nice. I'm happy. All I have to do is make sure I'm home. If I don't know where to go, I can see a house over here. When I click it, it takes me to home. Or at the top, I can click on new. And then once I get there, I just type in the name of the database I want and click on what? Create. If I want to type the SQL queries to create the database, remember, the programming language for a MySQL database is SQL. So SQL is not the database. The database is MySQL. SQL is the programming language we use in the database. So if I want to write a query, I just have to write create in capital letters. So create. I want to create a database. And my database is called new database. And then I'll click on the go button in which I see over here. So in doing so, I've just created a database. So I can type the SQL query to create the database. We can see over here I have new database created. More so, in here, I can then go on. So where is this thing? Where is this thing? So let me use the new database. In here, I can then go on to create my tables. Remember, in database language, tables are technically the entities we want to create. So the entities, the relationships, the so on and so forth, we create from these things. This is what we call the tables. So in here, I want to create the user table. So here I have user. I'll click on go. Now in here, I'm presented with 4 attributes. Remember, in database, the attributes are the fields. The fields give the characteristics of the entity. So if I say user, in my system, what makes someone a user? What properties call someone? What properties create or make someone a user? For you to be a user in my database, then you must have an ID. For you to be a user in my environment, you must have a name. So you must have a name. So here the name I'm using to represent full name. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Let me charge my PC. Okay. In here, I want to add that you must have a username and you must have a password. So for you to belong to my database, you must have an ID, a name, a username, and a password. Now, how will I store this information inside my database? Remember, the definition of a database is that it is a structured collection of data that can be easily accessed, managed, or updated. So the information there is data which is has a structure, it is structured in the collection of it. So if I'm telling the computer to store information on people's IDs, how do I want those IDs to be stored? I want them to be stored as an integer, and I also want it to be auto increased so that whenever someone is typing, automatically the ID will be generated. It will not be I who have to come and type the ID. In here, I'll click varchar, and in here, I'll type in 50. In here, I'll choose varchar, and in here, I'll type in 50. Now, the question is, what is varchar? Varchar is you telling the computer that the data type of the information that will be stored in the database, you want that information should be 50 characters. So here I am counting the characters that are being stored. That means that if someone's name exceeds 50 characters, the rest of the characters will not be stored because I'm telling the computer that in name, only 50 characters should be saved over there. So you can realize when I said int, I didn't put in the length because the computer already has a length for integer. But when I say varchar, I am putting in the number of characters I want the computer to take. Very importantly. Over here too, I want the password, and I want the password to be 64. After that, I'll just click on the save button. So right there, I've just created a database called new database. And then in there, I've put in a table called user. And in the table called user, I have the following attributes: ID, name, username, and what? Password. Now, I have to go and create the application that will accept information for me. Now, unlike the other applications where we can create the application anywhere, because this application will have to go and talk to the database, it means that this application here has to dwell in the server. And on my computer, where can I find the server? When I go to my drive C, I would find a folder called XAMPP old. I have lots of applications running, so I have XAMPP. But for you guys to be called XAMPP, take note. You guys, XAMPP. Me, it is called XAMPP old. And in there, I'll have a folder called htdocs, hypertext document. And it is at that htdocs location that if any file I create here, I am creating it in the server. Remember, we don't have the money to go and purchase a server. We don't have the funds to go and buy a new server. That's why we are using this server for our testing. Hence, when we ask the question, where is the physical location of our server? The physical location of our server that we can touch is in XAMPP in htdocs. So when I create a folder over here, I am creating a folder in my server. And this folder, I'm going to call it Blue Crest. And in there, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to right click and I'm going to type in here that it should open up by this folder in VS Code for me. So I've opened up this folder from terminal into what? VS Code. Now in here, I'm going to create index, not .php, not .html, but rather .what? PHP because this application is going to talk to the server. Now in here, I'll create the basic structure of the HTML page. So HTML semicolon 5, that will take care of that. And then in here, I'm going to start with my form tag. So I have form, I have method being equal to get, very important. And then I have action being equal to process dot PHP. Now in here, I'm going to create username, semicolon. So here I'll put in input type, text. The name property is going to be username. And then I'll end it over there. And then in here, I'm just going to copy this, paste it 3 times. And then here, I'm going to say, oh, here, let me not do it. Yeah, okay, username. Here, let me do it name. Let me do name first, so that the person can type in their name. And then, oh, let me use fname so that we know it's the full name. And then in here, let me see username. Good. And then the last one, let me do it password. So here I'll have password. Over here, I have the word password. Then in here, I'll have a button. Now, the type of button in which I want is submit. Perfect. Then in here, I'm going to say register. Great. So now, how will I open this? Remember, it is in the server. So it means the same way in which if you want a particular site, you go to www.com something, it means we need to locate the server we need to go to. Our server is localhost, so localhost slash Bluecrest, because that was the name of the folder we created, right? So Bluecrest. And you see that in here, I have this. I have name, that, and then that. Over here, let me put in a BR here. And another BR. Over here, let me put in a BR and another BR. And finally, here too, let me put in a BR and another BR so that my thing looks like that. Now, what am I telling the computer? Please, let's listen to this very important, very carefully. I'm telling the computer, go to the location called name. Go to the location called username. Go to the location called password. Type something in. So here I'll type in my username. I'll type in the username in which I want to have. And here I'll put in the password I want to let the user use. Now, when I click on register, certain things have to happen. What are those things? I'm telling the computer, package the information the person has typed as a get. Package the information the person has typed as a get. And then send that information to a page called process.php. Now over here, obviously, we don't have process.php here. That means that in here, I need to create process.what? PHP. Now in process.php, I'm going to type I am at process.php so that we all know whenever we come here, we know we are at process.php. So technically, when I go and click on this register button here, I am going to leave this page and go to the process.php word page. I am not going there alone. So over here, the URL is there. Let me copy it and let me bring it to our VS Code and let me take it to process.php, which would be clearer. And then let's see what we have there. So I have HTTP. Remember, I'm not on a secure network, so it will not be HTTPS. The name of my server is localhost. Sometimes when you're online, you see that you see google.com, bbc.com, facebook.com. All of those .coms that are placed in that location is the name of your server. Then the folders you have in that server will follow. In my case, I have what? Bluecrest. So Bluecrest is following. That means that in my server, I have another folder called what? Bluecrest. And in Bluecrest, I have a file called what? Process.php. So I have this file called process.php. Now, everything after this, what do you call it? The question mark sign. That is the get variable. So all the things I have here are the get variable. Now here I'm saying that create a location called full name and go and put there John Danso. And create a folder called username and go and put there you. And go and put a folder called password and go and put there, sorry, go and create a space called password and go and put there whatever I have in here. Now, let's see if what I'm saying, why is it coming that way? Whenever I tell the computer to send information as a get, I'm telling the computer to send the information in the URL. So whenever I come over here, I click here, I go to google.com. In google.com, I type in here, Man United. I go and I copy this link from Google, right? And then I bring it down here into the process.php, the same way I did the other one. I get to the end of it. First thing we'll see HTTPS because it is secure. Mine is not secure. I don't have any SSL, so there's no that. The second thing is the server. So once mine is localhost, theirs is google.com. The next thing is the folder. So over here, they have a folder called what? Search. And then in search, they have created a place called queue, where you have the queue, I'm sure it stands for question, where what I typed is there, Man United. And then they have another location called this. And in there, they have put all of this. They have another thing in which they are calling this, in which in there they have put all of this. They have another location called source, in which they know that my computer is a HP. They have another location called EL, in which they are taking information from my computer to use in their search. So you will be there and you're wondering, how do they know I'm using an iPhone or a Mac or this to send information? How do they know what I'm using? They know what you are using because they already know your device. They have picked that information. They have picked all of that and they have sent it in your URL right in front of your face in the top. And all that information is being sent using the get. Now, if I will be sending sensitive information to somebody, I will not use get because get information is sent in the URL. Get information can be copied and seen by everybody. If I want to send sensitive information, I'll send it using a post. The post will give it minimum encryption. It can be broken, but it is still encrypted enough for it to be sent. So if I am using a host to send my information, I would realize that when I type my code, when I come back here and I type in my password and I click on register, sorry, let me refresh this page. I go and type this again and that again and then again, and I click. I realize in the URL, when I copy it now and I come back to the process.php and paste it, I don't see any question mark there. I don't see any information there because it is encrypted and sent in the background. So if I'm sending information which is not pertinent, the video you want to watch, for example, if you go to YouTube, so I'm in YouTube, and then I click on a particular video. So let's say I click on this video here. When I copy the URL link of the video I just clicked, and I come in here, I can see that this is the location of my server, this is the folder, and here I have a variable called view, and in this variable, I am putting there this. So if I have information like this, which is not that important, it's not that pertinent, I can put it as a get. But when I have information which is pertinent, your credit card information, your login information, your registration information, the information you are used to fill a form, the information you are used to take data, then I will send the information as a post and not a get. Because if I send it as a get, the information will be revealed and the sensitive information of particular users will be revealed to the world. So now that that is cleared up and we know what post and get is, in here, when I bring the information here, I need to collect it. Remember what we told the computer? We said that the information is being kept as a post or a get. So the first thing I need to do is put my PHP tag over here. This is the open tag and this is the close tag. This tells the computer that the code between these two things here is going to be of type PHP. That means I'm typing PHP code in here. In PHP, when I want to type a variable, I use the $sign. So here I have $, full name, and it is equal to $, underscore post in square brackets, F name. Where is the F name coming from? The F name is coming from, okay, over here I typed full name. So let me go and change this thing to full name. So the full name here is coming from the name attributes we put in here. And it is this name attribute that you saw in the get variable where we said v is equal to. That means that in YouTube, there is a position there where they have put the v here like this. So we have name is equal to v. So that whatever you type, it goes into v. But in our case, whatever you type, it goes into full name. And we said that we should store it as a post. So to retrieve it, it is post. Go to post and look for where you have what? Full name. Over here too, I'll say go to, I'm creating a variable to store information, which is called username. And in here, I'm going to put in underscore post. In here, I'm going to put in username. Because over here, you can see that the name of it is what? Username. And then finally, for the last one, I have password, which is equal to $ underscore post square brackets password. So now I can say that echo, that is the word for display in PHP, full name. I can echo out a HTML tag, and we all know what this tag is. Break is for creating a new line. So I'm telling the computer to create for me a new line. And then I want to put the echo username and echo that. So now when I come back here, I go back here, I refresh my screen, I type John again, I type that again, and I type that again, and I click on register. I see .we and then this one over here. So the information I type is being transferred. But the objective is I want to transfer the information into my database. So for me to transfer the information into my database, I need to create a connection to the database. Now this code has the following things. This code, I'll type con. The word con there could be anything. It could be connect, it could be con, whatever spelling you want is your business. The idea is it is a variable that will hold the connection we have to the database, like a key. Then in here, I'm going to say MySQL I_connect. Now, this piece of code here is me connecting to the database. Now, for me to connect to the database, I require 4 things. First thing I need is to know what database am I connecting to? The database I'm connecting, what server am I connecting to? The server I'm connecting to is called localhost. And by the way, they are in this order. The next thing I need to know is the user who uses the database in the server. What is his name? His name is root. Note that depending on your server, the name will change. But in our case, in your case, when you set up and you go and install XAMPP, it will be root because you have not changed it. Again, here, I have no password to the database. If I had a password, I'll type it in here. So in this location here is for the password. Note, if I leave a space here, it means my password is space. So I'll make sure the 2 codes are together. That means I don't have a password. And then in here, I'll type the name of my database, and my name of my database is new database. So when I go over here just to check, I know that the name of my database is new database. Okay, it's here. Again, MySQL connect. That one, there's no running away. You write this word. But the parenthesis here, it takes 4 things. Localhost, root, this empty thing for password, and then here I would take the name of the database. So if I tell you the name of my server is google.com, that means here you put in what? Google.com, whatever the username is, and so on and so forth. This code here is the connection to the database. This one is not part. But once this code here runs, what if it connects to the database or it does not? Whatever happens, it will go and give it to connect. Hence, I can use connect to go and open and come back in my database like a key. Whenever I need to open my database, I would use connect to go and open my database and come back. Now, the database only understands one language, and the language the database understands is SQL. That means if I am going to the database, I can't go and talk HTML there. I can't go and talk PHP there. I need to talk SQL there. So over here, I'm going to create an SQL statement. So I'm going to create an SQL statement here. SQL be equal to double quote. I want to insert so here I'm writing SQL queries. So insert into the user table. Remember, if I am using a table called order, then here will be order. If it is whatever it is, that name would be there. Then here, what fields do I want to insert into? ID is not part because I said ID should be auto increment. So I'll be setting it to name, comma, username, comma, and password. And what am I inserting? I want you to put in the following value. And what values are you inserting? You are inserting the full name, the person type, but they would be in single quotes too. So full name, comma. I want the surname, comma. I want the password. Then we will close them off over here. Now, this means that we have full name going with this going with that, and then this one going with that. If you switch the orders, it means their entry will also be what? Switched. Now, this is the SQL statement that will run in the database. Now, I have to tell the computer to go to the database and run this SQL statement there. So I'm going to say MySQL I underscore query. When you go there, run the SQL statement. Luckily, I saved the SQL statement in this variable. So if I put it there, it knows that it's running the SQL statement. And also, what you would need to open the database. Sorry, over here, I'll put the collection, and then I'll put the SQL statement that will run. I am teaching a VB class. In VB, it is the opposite way. So here you have the query, and then here you have the connection. But with PHP, it's the connection first, and then you have the query second. Then in here, I can put in a variable called result to hold what will happen. So here I can say if into brackets result. Then I'll close my curly brackets here. Then I'll put all of this in here. So if the result is okay, I'll just say echo successful registration. Then I'll echo a break. And then comma off. Then color. Then the names will come. Else, on echo on successful registration. So now let's see if this will run. It will give us an error. What will happen when we run this code? So back here, I go back, I refresh. I have John over here again. The username is you, and the password I want 12345 6. So when I click on register, I see successful registration of John Dasu U123456. Of course, in normal situations, you will not reveal the person's password and stuff. But here, I just want us to see the information that we typed there. That is the information we are seeing here. Now, when I go to the database, and I go and click on the database called new user, it's new database, and I click on user, I would see one here. Remember, I said auto increment, so it will increase by itself. Over here, John Danso, the name I type, username, you, password, 123456. Of course, going up, you realize we may encrypt the password. So in our next lessons, we will learn how to encrypt the password of SHA-1. That means that when you come here, this is what you would see. Then you don't know what the person has typed. Or we can encrypt the password using MD5 so that the person will not know what he has typed, and then we'll hide the passwords and so on and so forth. Are there any questions, please? If there are no questions, we'll bring our class to an end here. Next week, we'll go over a more detailed registration form. And then we'll also look at a login form. How can we register you, log you in? I would send you the code for the registration form. I want you to spend time, use it as practice to build your HTML skills and so on and so forth. So that when we come next week, we'll just design the form and take it from there. I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you for coming and thank you for listening to me. We'll meet again next week.